J.D. Vance will be debating the Tampon Tim and the two Democrat Party mouthpieces at CBS, 3 against 1, and he will do great. Doesn't matter what the media say about the debate. They will do great. We'll be talking about that. These horrendous flood. At some point in the show, I want to remind people where they can go to help our fellow citizens who are still in desperate need. I want to talk about this Longshore attempt to cripple our economy. That's what their boss said. We can cripple the economy. I was listening to this guy. I said, what kind of a friggin' thug is this guy? And then I digged even further into what these guys are making. Look, I'm not pro-union, anti-union. I'm pro-market. If people want to join a union, great. If they don't want to join a union, great. I'm opposed to monopolies, whether they're union monopolies or corporate monopolies. I'm for competition. That's what free markets are about. You cannot have a single union shut down the American economy. I'm sorry. I agree with Harry Truman. I believe cops need unions, firefighter needs unions, other people too. Great. They vote for unions, great. They don't vote for unions, great. It's whatever they want. But you can't have a union shut down the American economy when we have millions of people in the South and in the East who are fighting for their very survival, when you have hundreds of millions of Americans who are desperate, who can't afford prices to begin with. And you'll see a lot of these longshoremen earning over $150,000 a year with unbelievable medical benefits. Not all, but a lot. And we'll get into that later. Tomorrow is Rosh Hashanah. I will not be here. Our buddy Larry O'Connor will be here, but I'll be back the next day. Then, of course, there's Israel. Hamas attacks Israel, Israel fights back. Hezbollah attacks Israel, Israel fights back. The Houthis attack Israel, Israel fights back. Iran attacks Israel, Israel's going to fight back. And yet it's Israel that's always escalating. Oh, no. Biden-Harris don't deserve one whit of credit. They were the funding source for Iran, which in turn was the funding source for Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and everything else. I watched this all day long. And even some of our friends don't tell the story about how tens of billions of dollars have flowed into Iran directly and indirectly by this regime in the United States. How they've been coddling them. We don't have a single plan to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon, which they can now put on their hypersonic missiles that they've developed. This is Obama, this is Biden, this is Harris, this is Blinken. It's a disaster what they've created in the Middle East. And of course they hate Netanyahu. Why? Because I've been saying, and now others are regurgitating this on Fox, because he's Churchill. That's why. That's why. And then today, terrorists, they go into Tel Aviv and the Jaffa, where these young people are. They love killing young people. They come out with two rifles, or one's with a rifle, one with a knife. They murder 7 of them, wound 8 of them. And one guy, I believe, pulls a pistol and murders and kills both of them. The press secretary at the Defense Department today, they said that they worked with Israel. They shot 181 ballistic missiles into the country of Israel. Almost all of them were taken down. They have a system where if they're not actually going to hit a populated area, they let the missile go ahead and hit the the Mediterranean Sea or hit some general area, because it costs $2 million a pop to knock these things down. And of course, these systems aren't perfect. They're damn good, but they're not perfect. And so at the press briefing at the Pentagon today, one intrepid reporter asked, well, how many missiles did we fire on these 2 destroyers? We fired 12. Well, how many of those actually hit their target? We don't know yet. I'm glad the United States military is there. I detest the fact that the commander-in-chief is Joe Biden, or this thing would be over already. Let us not forget that it is Iran that's trying to murder Donald Trump as I speak, as well as others. Pompeo, Bolton, O'Neill, a whole slew of people. They're our enemy. Can you imagine them having a nuclear weapon on these ballistic missiles? And by the way, it's not a nuclear weapon. They're going to have a breakout with 3 ballistic missiles carrying nuclear warheads. So what is the Biden administration's plan? There is no plan. So it's left to tiny Israel to figure out what to do, and they're going to hit him back. And again, during all the reporting today, what will Israel do? What will Israel do? Well, Israel has one arm tied behind its back because of Harris and Biden and Blinken. It's got to be, a limited response. Can you imagine if 181 ballistic missiles were shot into the United States? A limited response. Or Hamas did what it did, or Hezbollah did what it did. It's just sickening. But I want to circle back. Briefly. I worked in the Reagan administration. I remember when President Reagan proposed the Strategic Defense Initiative. All of these defensive missile systems, Iron Dome, David Sling, even other missile systems. Can you imagine if there wasn't a defensive missile system? What would be happening in Israel today? They'd have to use one of their atomic bombs on Iran because they couldn't afford to be hit by all these missiles. This is what Reagan did for humanity. And he was fought every step of the way by the Democrat Party and by Joe Biden. So it is important to have context. Some of you are voting, some of you are going to be voting. It is important to know the mentality of Joe Biden and Harris and that wing of the ruling class. And just so you know, Israel has an iron dome over its country. We do not. So even though the idea started with the United States, we're too busy with electric vehicles. We're too busy with redistribution of wealth on climate change. We're too busy bankrupting ourselves with this Marxist Islamist agenda. We don't even defend ourselves. Now, this is just 2 minutes. Ronald Reagan, March 1983, when he announces the Strategic Defense Initiative, he's immediately attacked by the same media today who hates Reagan, hates America, hates our security, hates the defense. And they called it Star Wars, and they mocked him. They mocked him as a buffoon. Cut one, go.
America does possess now the technologies to attain very significant improvements in the effectiveness of our conventional non-nuclear forces. Proceeding boldly with these new technologies, we can significantly reduce any incentive that the Soviet Union may have to threaten attack against the United States or its allies. As we pursue our goal of defensive technologies, we recognize that our allies rely upon our strategic offensive power to deter attacks against them. Their vital interests and ours are inextricably linked. Their safety and ours are one, and no change in technology can or will alter that reality. We must and shall continue to honor our commitments. I clearly recognize that defensive systems have limitations and raise certain problems and ambiguities. If paired with offensive systems, they can be viewed as fostering an aggressive policy, and no one wants that. But with these considerations firmly in mind, I call upon the scientific community in our country, those who gave us nuclear weapons, to turn their great talents now to the cause of mankind and world peace, to give us the means of rendering these nuclear weapons impotent and obsolete. Tonight, consistent with our obligations under the ABM Treaty and recognizing the need for closer consultation with our allies, I'm taking an important first step. I am directing a comprehensive and intensive effort to define a long-term research and development program to begin to achieve our ultimate goal of eliminating the threat posed by strategic nuclear missiles. This could pave the way for arms control measures to eliminate the weapons themselves. We seek neither military superiority nor political advantage. Our only purpose, one all people share, is to search for ways to reduce the danger of nuclear war. My fellow Americans, tonight we're launching an effort which holds the promise of changing the course of human history. There will be risks, and results take time, but I believe we can do it. As we cross this threshold, I ask for your prayers and your support.
This was revolutionary. 1983, March. He came under immediate attack by the Democrat Party and their media. and one of those who led the attack against the Strategic Defense Initiative, mocked it, said it was dangerous. That's right. Missiles hitting missiles. What kind of an idiot is Reagan? What kind of comic book character is he? Was Joe Biden in 1986 at the National Press Club. Cut 2, go.
This brings us to the administration's fifth myth, and surely the most remarkable in my opinion. Unable or unwilling to build on arms control progress of his predecessors, and under mounting public pressure as a result, the President in 1983 performed an astounding political act. Like the Baryshnikov of nuclear politics, he simply pirouetted and leaped over the entire issue, announcing a presidential vision that the American people could escape nuclear danger, not by arms control, but by erecting an anti-nuclear Astrodome over the United States of America. This immaculately conceived notion has obviously demonstrated that it has a certain mystical appeal. Unfortunately, it has no possibility of practicable implementation, as asserted by an overwhelming body of scientific opinion, by common sense, and even reportedly by Assistant Secretary Pearl in his private conversations with our allies. To say that Star Wars will not work, however, is far from calling it meaningless. For the President's quixotic initiative is already inflicting serious damage on American interest, in my opinion. It has confused our national debate, perhaps deliberately so, about the direction of American nuclear strategy. It has increased and misallocated our defense budget at a time requiring austerity and carefully established priorities, emphasizing the improvement of conventional forces.
Go.
For so long as it remains non-negotiable, Star Wars constitutes a major impediment to arms control. This multiplicity of negative consequences combines, in my opinion, into a single conclusion. Star Wars represents a fundamental assault on the concepts, alliances, and arms control agreements that have buttressed American security for several decades, and the President's continued adherence to it constitutes one of the most reckless and irresponsible acts in the history of modern statecraft. The past 6 years have demonstrated that the world can survive, in the short run, without progress on nuclear arms control.
This man is a buffoon. A dangerous, dangerous man who's contributed nothing to this country in half a century. Reagan even had to shut down the government twice to get enough funding to continue the scientific research for the Strategic Defense Initiative. One small country came to the United States 2 years after Reagan announced it and said to the United States, said to the Reagan administration, we will work with you to develop a system. A nation that is always on the cutting edge of technology. And that nation is called Israel. And Israel and the United States entered into joint agreements to develop a strategic defense initiative, to develop the Iron Dome, to develop David's Sling, to develop even a more advanced system, which Israel would then put in place. But the United States has not. Other than 2 cities that I shall not mention, we are naked. Now you think about that. Biden, who's been funding Iran. Biden, who is now withholding weapons from Israel. You think about that.